Recording. We hope it's recording. It's still the 14th of January, 2026. And what we were doing last time roughly led us up to this. This might look a little bit unfamiliar, but we've still got the content view, of course, because that defines everything that shows up on at least the open screen for our app, the initial screen. And it has to have a body because it's a view. And we've still got the globe and the hello world. And I don't know if I did this or not. Did I split off keyboard key as a separate structure in class? Okay, so we did do that because it was getting repetitious up here. Looks like it's repetitious still. But it makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keyboard keys. And let me make sure I didn't break anything. I hope I didn't break anything. Build succeeded, that looks good. I'm gonna need to make this smaller. Well, not that small, so I can go back and forth between that and the simulator. The simulator. There. So there's 6 keyboard keys, and actually I think those are more attractive than the ones I ended up with on Monday, if I do say so myself. They don't have the letters bleeding over the edges or anything. All of that was fixable stuff. And if you're thinking as we go through these demos, well, that doesn't look like the unnamed word game at all. These are all sort of just tests of hypotheses for getting things on the screen for crying out loud. After I've got a bunch of keys on the screen for the keyboard, after they're roughly the right shape and everything, then I can tweak all that stuff. I can make adjustments and make it the right background color, and make them the right letters, and get rid of the hello world. Actually, that should be fairly simple, huh? Getting rid of hello world. Let me get a little more screen space here. Perhaps a lot. I'll make this go away. Let's see, what's the next thing? Well, the next thing is, instead of everybody saying A, because that doesn't give the user very much choice about what letters to use for their guesses, let's put in a local variable. I mean, this is a structure. I can put variables in here if I want to. And inside this structure, I'm going to put var. And it's a label. Oh, stop it. Var. And it's a letter on the key. So I'm going to put letter. And yes, it will be a. I've got to learn how to accept what autocomplete. No, not string A. You silly goose. That's the whole point of having this var, is so that it doesn't have to be string A all the time. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm doing the right stuff. Kind of, sort of. I thought I would be organized and print out everything, and it's a madhouse up here. But now I've got a local variable, which means, look at this, it's giving me an error, missing argument for letter in call. And I don't know if you recall, but when you make a structure or a class or anything like that, and it's got variables in it, Swift does not allow any variables to not have values, except optionals, and those are special case. So I have to provide a value for variable letter, and it looks like I'm passing in a named parameter. I have to type in what the name of the field is in the structure and give it, okay, I'll let it be A. I have to give it a value. Now I got to do that for each of the others. Letter, colon, why not S? I'm inching toward an actual keyboard. Letter, colon, double quote, so the next one is D. And I'm just reading these from my keyboard if you're wondering where these letters are coming from. Letter, colon, double quote, F. Letter, colon, double quote, G. Letter, colon, double quote, H. Does everybody see what the idea is here? And all the errors and warnings went away. I'm just supplying the letter that I want this keyboard key to use, and it has no choice. I mean, if I instantiate the structure with a particular letter, well, it actually does have a choice, doesn't it? What's this going to do now? Anybody know? It prints A's all over the place because I'm dumb. No, I just didn't finish what I was starting. What do I actually want to use as my text here? Letter, you're exactly right. And you want to spell it right, otherwise it was all for nothing. Okay. Stop before you go again. There, A, S, D, F, G, H. We are inching up on it. We're sneaking up on something we can use as a keyboard. Now, I don't know why, but computer scientists seem to hate mindless repetition. And even though we're giving them all different letters and everything, so they're not exactly the same, this still looks like mindless repetition, doesn't it? So what we can do is throw off these letters to an array somewhere and then just pick them out of the array one at a time. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Except that means I'm going to need to start my, man, these words are tiny. Start my, not close project, open, recent, no. Try that again. File. I want a new file. Give me new file. No, it's at the top. New. You've got to help me read this stuff. And I want file from template. That gives me a few basic things in it already. And of course, I want to make sure it's iOS. Make sure it's a Swift file. Hi, I'm Dr. England. We need a file named Symbolic Constants. And I don't know why I do that, but I always do. Maybe that's why I do it, because I always do. And let me check the location. Just it's going to try to put it in Word Game Redo, which was the what I named the Start from Scratch version yesterday that we're working on now. And create it. And there, symbolic constants. Let me see if it showed up over here. There it is. It shows up now as an additional file in my project, so to speak. And you'll notice it imports Foundation by default. Swift UI is the whole shebang. That's the big library that has the rectangles and the circles and the views and all that stuff. Foundation is the basic Swift stuff, kind of like including, if you've used See It All, stdio. I mean, it's just the standard basic stuff, but sometimes we've got to switch over and import Swift UI anyway. I think it's even the same arrangement that Swift UI, if I'm not mistaken, includes Foundation already. It's just Foundation. You include that if you know you don't need the whole stuff. And symbolic constants, those are not going to define views that show up on the screen. There's no point in pulling in all that machinery that can make those rounded rectangles and views and all that stuff. We don't need that here. What we need is either, well, not an enum. I could do an enum. I'm not ready for those yet. But if they're constants, then how do you set up a constant in Swift? I give you multiple choice. Is it var or let? Let. Let there be light. Let. And I stick with my old conventions because they stand out in the code better for me. Not that. How does it come up with these ideas? Key labels equals. And it will implicitly figure out the type of array if you just start putting stuff in there. And I want the letters that I'm using. No. A, S, and I don't have to remember them because they're right here in front of me. A, S. You are not helping. You are getting in my way. Look at that. What? I thought it said something obscene there for a second. I'm about to. Okay. As well as I can read. Does that say A, S, D, F, G, H, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? We've got 6. We'll work with 6. Okay. And it's in the project. When you make a new file, it goes in the project anyway. All of that was for this one little file here. Another thing I'm going to do to try to finesse it just a little bit, since we know how to make new files now, this keyboard key, that's developing a life and complexity all its own, is it not? So what I'm going to do is grab all of this and right-click, cut, Command X. Oop, there it went, my keyboard key. Oh no, I'll make a new file. And there are probably several things about the keyboard, so we'll file from template. Same thing. I'll call this one keyboard. And the other one went in the right place without me looking. B-O-A-R-D. So I'll assume this one will too. And there it is. There's a keyboard. And I'll just dump this in here. Command V. Whoops. Cannot find view in scope. Need to import SwiftUI over here, because this is part of what goes on the screen. Oh, thank you for going away. Now, this is just a little bit premature, but now that we're working with multiple files, it's not a bad idea to keep up with which major piece of our guiding light design pattern this is. And our guiding light design pattern, I have looked at options, and I didn't make the call until recently. I think we're going to still go with model, view, view model. The model is all the data, the kind of the background stuff and the logic and the strategy of the game and everything. The view is everything that shows up on the screen, the colorful candy shell. But the view, bless its heart, doesn't have a brain. It doesn't have any clue what's going on. All it knows is these are the things that are on the screen right now. So there has to be a connection between the view and the model, but often, if not always, we don't want to expose all the gory technical details. It's like that's the private inside part of an object of a class, if you map it back to C++. So we need sort of an interface, so to speak, in air quotes, between those two, and that's where the view model comes in. The view model is the go-between between the view and the model. And this right here, since this is stuff that's on the screen, this is part of the view. That's why I put it all in capital letters, and I might as well do it with the others. Content view, why, absolutely, this is part of the view. I think everything that we've got so far is part of the view. Nothing is capable of any rational thought, artificial or otherwise. Symbolic constants, no. Symbolic constants, I'm going to declare that to be part of the model. That's part of the data, the underlying data, and that's a connection to the operating system. We don't pay any attention to that. So far, I've got more files, and I don't know if I broke it or not. It works, but I'm not really using any of the new stuff I just put in there. If we go back to content view, the whole point of setting up that array of letters is so that I don't have to do this ridiculous mess. And you might think, well, you can just use a for loop and go through that. I'm scared to get rid of it yet. I might have to come back to it. I'm not going to put a comment there. Why did you do that? You know what? That's going to be confusing. I'm just going to comment out the entire H stack. I know. When you find a better way, you're supposed to kill your darlings. But my darlings might save me if this doesn't work. Oh, my darlings. I was going to comment out the H stack. Now it will show nothing at all. So what I want to do is, I still need an H stack. I still want it to appear horizontally. H-S-T-A-C-K. And you might be thinking, for loop through all the letters, except it's not really for loop. It's a variation of for loop. For weirdo SwiftUI land, it's called a for each. It's all one word, for each. Create a view for each thing in an array. That's what it's for. It's part of SwiftUI. It's not part of Basic Swift. And it's fairly easy to use. Look, it's even trying to help me, except I don't want to go to 0 to 26. I want to go for each. And you can just give it the name of your array. The name of my array is key labels. Is it not? And weirdness abounds. What you do is, this is sort of like a computed value for each of the different views that it will make. For each itself is, what are those called? What did I say that HStack and VStack? View builder. Thank you very much. It's a view builder. In other words, it's just going to dump a bunch of stuff in curly brackets, and the system knows to view each one of those as a view and to put all those views in there. VStack is a view builder. It builds a view made up of an image and a text and an HStack and whatever else we have in there. So this for each, which I'm replacing the repetitious contents with. Here's the weird thing you got to do. Letter. Yes, I will take that. Letter in, and I want to do what? I want to make a keyboard key for each letter. Keyboard key. That's ugly. I could do that. The name of the not parameter, but local variable I just now put in keyboard key was letter, wasn't it? Let me check, because I can't remember. Yes, it's got a local variable now named letter. So this is saying to that local variable named letter, use the letter. This is like a loop iteration variable. I mean, the closest analogy I can think of, I'm going to call it label so it's less confusing. The closest analogy I can think of is the I variable, and for I equals 0, I is less than 5, yada, yada, yada. Except here's what happens. It's not let me stop and type first. There, I did it. Please hold your applause. What it does, it goes through each different value in the key labels array and label this loop iteration variable. Each value in key labels one at a time becomes the value of whatever variable you put here. It really is very much like a loop iteration variable. And if you're wondering about keyword in, that says, well, here comes the lines of the function. It's like this is a local variable, and the in says, well, here come the lines of a function. And you might wonder, well, why don't we put an open curly bracket? Here come the lines of the function. Because we're already inside an open curly bracket. Actually, that's the only rationale I can think of why they would invent this keyword in, to separate the local variables that you might need in, and then it shows you the lines that you want that label to be used in. So what this should do, the plan is, we go through each of the key labels one at a time, each one of those letters of the alphabet represented as a string, and the label, the lowercase label, one at a time takes on those values, and we make a keyboard key. In other words, it's exactly this. It should end up with exactly this, except my peripheral vision is picking up an error over here. Cannot find Lee labels in scope. Well, did you look? You should have looked harder. There, key labels. Now it gives me a different error. It's even worse. Referencing the initializer init on for each requires that string conform to identifiable. Each thing in the array is a string. Has anybody tried to use for each yet? Maybe in your vast research online to try to get increment 1 done for crying out loud? No. That's what we're kind of headed toward now. What this is saying was wildly cryptic to me, and I'm afraid that if I were to go back and review the video where I tried to figure this out last time, 2 years ago, it might even be worse than the Monday video. Oh my goodness, there were some crash and burns in there. I could not figure out what this was talking about. Fortunately, we don't have to figure out what this is talking about. Let me show you. The magic of modern artificial intelligence. It's trying to tell us something about SwiftUI. I'm going to make this screen big here to soak up all of it. I think I am. Why don't you get bigger? There. SwiftUI square, no. Been there, done that. SwiftUI for each identifiable. That was what the error was trying to tell us, right? It was trying to say that you had an error with your for each because string was not identifiable. And it's generating, look, protocol, identifiable protocol. The identifiable protocol requires that you have a variable named ID. Just like the protocol for views said you got to have a body variable, identifiable has to have an ID variable. And the reason for that, as far as I can tell, is it has to have some unique way to distinguish the different elements in your array. And the string itself is not Gesundheit. The string itself is not sufficient because For all it knows, you're going to have several strings in there that are identical to each other. So we could have had SOS. That might not have been a bad plan. SOSSABC, for example. Then it claims, because the for each is not very smart, that it would not be able to distinguish those S's from each other because they don't have different IDs. So the solution is to come up with an ID. And yes, I have tried this with an ID, but wait, there's more. There's, where's my for each? Look at this ID. This ID, it looks like it's doing it on the fly. Look at this, the shortest one. The shortest one is often the sweetest one. For simple types like a string or whatever, look at what they did. ID : /.self. And they used the name local variable like I did, except they just made a text with it, text name. What this is doing, again, all of these things, you have to precondition those. Like I preconditioned my searches with SwiftUI. You've got to precondition these with, to the best of his knowledge, Dr. England thinks that the self is very similar to the this pointer inside an object in a C++ class. Do you remember those? You've got to have some way to refer to yourself. There's the this pointer and the descriptions I've read of self, which is a keyword, it's a different color here, that's very similar. It's like a pointer to yourself, to you particularly letter of alphabet and the array, and those are all unique because all the addresses, all the pointers have to be unique to whatever that array element is. So all I got to do, I would say I've got to remember this, but I'm not. I'm going to go even further and just right-click and copy that and temporarily paste it in my code so I remember how to fix it. Did everybody see how I got here? That's actually the most important part of this little error we're having, is how you can track it down and just look through the AI summary. Oh my goodness, this is so much shorter than the description in the Xcode documentation for SwiftUI and Swift. Why identity is crucial. As long as we get it fixed, we don't care why it's crucial. Go away, Safari. You've outlived your usefulness, at least for now. I didn't mean that, Safari. Please stay on my side. Okay. Command V. And what I want to do is for each key labels, those are all strings, comma, ID : /.self. Now I don't need this anymore. I only copied that and pasted it just so I could see it and not have to remember it. Now I don't remember how to highlight so I can delete. Oh, come on. One at a time. It won't even let me highlight this. I should have just remembered /self. Now the indentation's off. For each labels ID self, and look, the error went away. That doesn't mean it's going to work. It just means the error went away. So now what it's going to try to do is loop through each of the values of the key label symbolic constant array, saying your ID is your address because your letter is not unique necessarily. And each label, that still is going to take on the value of each key label one at a time and try to make a keyboard key out of it. ASDF GH. Dare I do it? Are we confident? It was using the for each because that's not commented. Bye-bye, my darling. Let me try again just to make sure it didn't break it. There. Who has a question that I can answer about anything that we just did? Keyboard key. It's got a letter in it now. It says it's taking care of business. A structure is, it's like some structures are very similar to the way they were in C++, which is a dog structure. You just dump in everything you need to know about a dog. A keyboard key structure, you dump in everything you need to know about a keyboard key, except remembering that is a view is going to be on screen. Yes.
So would you have to have like a separate array and a separate for each loop for each row of the keyboard?
I don't know that you have to. That would certainly seem simpler. if you are novices and just trying to get it to work for crying out loud. Yes. Actually, what I just now finessed away in the keyboard view, I could have left it just keyboard key, keyboard key, keyboard key, except looking ahead to the future a little bit, when there are a lot more than 6 keyboard keys, that would have been just horribly ugly. And also, as it turns out, that ugliness compounds because we're not done with keyboard key. There's more stuff we're going to be doing to it. And if we've got it repeated 27 times or whatever, then we've got ugliness repeated 27 times. It gets more and more complex. It's not only for beauty and elegance to reduce it so that we can do it as a label. It's also for simplicity and to keep the code from just growing exponentially. And I forgot your question. It was, do you have to do that for each keyboard row? I would say that's a reasonable option, yes. They're all going to behave about the same way. Actually, well, hang on just a second. I don't even know that it is going to be straightforward to do a single for each that does the whole keyboard, because the for each is as dumb as the rest of the view. And it's just going to plop a keyboard key for each value of the array. And I mean, I don't know the equivalent of a new line or whatever, and I wouldn't even know how to test to see where you are, to see if it's time for a new line. So at the moment, the only way I could think of to do it would be with the separate for eaches for each keyboard row. And I forgot how many keyboard rows there are. Yes?
Would you go about in a similar way to change the colors of the blocks?
I probably wouldn't have a symbolic constant array of letters. Those would probably be, if you wanted to go through and make each one of your objects on the screen, I can't avoid the word object, each one of your circles on the screen a different thing. What kind of a different thing should it be? Color. So maybe you would want something like circle colors as your symbolic constant array. I don't know. That is quite an intuitive leap there. I'm not sure you can handle it. Yeah. Other question on this? I am going to get lost in the madness here. Actually, this is pretty much all you need to know for increment 1, except instead of all the same color with different letters, you will have all different colors, and instead of rounded rectangles, you will have circles. And no, I do not post this code to Canvas. I will post all of the source code for my increment 1, which comes along midterm the same time yours does. But time's passed. I don't think I posted it 2 years ago. Before, when I had done it, I recognized my own code coming back to me with tweaks and people getting stuck in the lab. I don't know why this isn't working, and I would look at it and it was my code. It's not working because you tried to copy my code and twist it into your own devious purposes, and you didn't know what you were doing. So I don't know that the actual act of typing will help it sink in better, but it certainly won't hurt. And you can pause this video. I mean, if you think this is perfect, well, how can I argue with that? I just wrote it myself. But if you think this is perfect and you want to do it exactly like this, then just bring it to the video at whatever count we're in, something minutes and something seconds, and just look at it on the screen. Are there any, speaking of which, are there any questions about increment 1 before we move on? We do have a little time to move on. Man, talk about a quantum leap. I guess we might as well. Next phase, file. New. Just remind me every time I go to file that Dr. England is the top option. And let me search for file with from template. Any questions? Last chance to stall. Model. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, it's not that big a deal. Model is just where we put, and it is part of the model, by the way, that's where we put our data and the logic and everything else. If I weren't going to have, now the reason I separate symbolic constants is because it turned out in older iterations of this, or not this project necessarily. In older iterations of projects, I ended up with symbolic constants sprinkled across all the other files. And I don't see any point in not putting them all in the same file, regardless of whether they're primarily for the benefit of the model or the view or anybody in between. I know where all my symbolic constants are. And then it becomes like a little control panel, and I can go in there, oh no, those rectangles are too rounded. By the way, I've got a lot of literals floating around in there. Nobody called it on it. I don't know if you were being nice because I'm old and drifting into senility, or you just didn't think of it. But yes, I am going to go back and change all of those not symbolic constants, change all those literal values into symbolic constants. I just haven't done it yet. I was just moving forward, eyes on the prize, moving in a straight line ahead. And the model, there's really not much to put in here yet. It's going to be a structure like everything else, pretty much. Struct model, var text equals hello world. I don't really have any interest in that, but it's kind of cute. I'll just leave it. No, it didn't even leave it. So there's one file. And I need another file. What's the other file I'm missing if I'm going to have a complete set to fill in with things here and there? Top option. No, not top option. What now?
The view model?
Yes, the view model, which is the glue, the go-between. In some ways, about the only one that really knows what the action is in the game. Now, the view model is different in that there are things that we'll do with the view model that we don't do with the model or the view, either one, including occasionally, believe it or not, pass the entire view model around as a parameter. To do that, this has to be a class rather than a structure. Class view model. Now, I can appeal to your vast knowledge of what's going on behind the scenes in C++ to tell you that classes, if we pass classes as parameters, there's no way to change it otherwise, as far as I know. Those are passed by reference. You're passing the address of a class anywhere you pass it as a parameter. Structures. Structures are supposed to be read-only. And when you pass those as parameters, which you can do, you can pass those around. Those are always, always passed by value. So there's a difference. Class object, I can't avoid it. A class variable, a class object, a class constant, anything. It only passes the address. The structure, it passes the contents. And unless, rules are made to be broken, unless you do special additional steps, you are not allowed to change the values of things in structures. Which kind of begs the question, I suppose. Now that I have these files, I'm going to run it again, even though they don't do anything at all, just to make sure that it's not broken at each stage. I still have a work in increment 1 now that I'm trying to sneak up on increment 2. Let's see, content view. This is that Christmas tree thing I was talking about. None of these things actually change anything. This is declarative programming. We are describing what we want this Christmas tree to look like. Now, it might involve taking that whole Christmas tree and passing it over to a view modifier and letting the view modifier change it. And it will say, okay, now you've got blue ornaments on you, and I'm going to replace you with your bare Christmas tree. So now we're back, and we got the blue ornaments on it. Oh no, another view modifier. Put Christmas lights on it. So we pass it again, and it puts lights all over the Christmas tree, and it comes back, and now it's got blue ornaments and Christmas lights. Those, believe it or not, are technically not changing the structure of the content view. Those are replacing. We're throwing out an old version and replacing it with the new one. And you'll find several places where we have to do something like that, and it does feel just a little bit like cheating. Well, you're kind of skirting it a little bit. You're cheating just a little bit. Here's an example of cheating just a little bit. Keyboard key, I guess I can go ahead and maybe break the seal on this. Here's a wild and crazy view modifier that's used a lot. Oh, please, memory, come on. On tap gesture. Part of the reason I can remember that is because that's kind of a weird name to put it. On tap gesture. And I don't even need a local variable for what I'm going to try to do. I am going to press my luck and maybe have a repeat of the Disastrous Monday demo, but I'm going to try to do a print. Print, tapped on. Look at what the AI did for me. Tapped on, and then it tries to print out the label. Now, It didn't, it better not give me an error because most of that line was their own original creation, they being the built-in AI autocomplete. So let's see what that does. It didn't break anything. I'm going to hit G. Look at what it did down in the console. Tapped on G. Tapped on S. It is absolute magic. And it looks like, we're getting perilously close to implementing an algorithm there. Except technically we're not. We're not modifying the view. We're modifying what's in the console window. So we can tap on letters till the cows come home if we want to, and see what letter gets tapped on down here. Now, where we're headed with that, and I say we're headed because we are running out of time, where we're headed with that is we need to tell the view model that somebody tapped on a letter. And the view model turns around and goes through the model and says, okay, they've selected this letter. What are you going to do about it? And that's going to become like the first letter of their guess or the second letter or whatever it may be. So now we've got the pieces that need to communicate with each other. Actually, I'm going to stop this video and draw a picture on the board because we really need a solid mental image of this philosophical paradigm design pattern and how these pieces interact. Does anybody have any question about what's happened so far? I know our files for model and view model are empty, but those will fill up soonly enough. Everything we've done so far has just been related to the content view. You should be able to do, I keep saying this, I hope it's true. I think you should be able to do increment 1 now. If you run into questions, you can get me in office hours or you can ask Friday. We'll still be here Friday. Any questions on what you see on the screen or what we've done in class? Not a whole lot in class, but some important things a little bit. Now, all I got to do is figure out how to stop the record. I think it's the same keystrokes again. Shift Command 5. Yes, no. We're stopped. There's stop.